Haunted Village of Myeongdong. The abandoned village of Myeongdong clung precariously to the slopes of Mount Jiri, a cluster of weathered homes and crumbling temples huddled together like shivering survivors in the face of a relentless storm. Its name, once synonymous with serenity and prosperity, had become a chilling whisper on the wind, carrying the echoes of a forgotten tragedy and a village cursed by a vengeful spirit. Despite the dire warnings from the locals in the valley below who spoke in hushed tones of spectral figures glimpsed amongst the derelict buildings and anguished cries which pierced the silence of the night, I, a seasoned paranormal investigator, was drawn to the village as if compelled by forces beyond my comprehension. Armed with only my wits, my equipment and a thirst for the truth, I set out alone into the heart of the brooding mountain. With each step along the winding goat track the air seemed to grow heavier, pressing down oppressively as if the very atmosphere was warning me away. The canopy of knotted pines grew more twisted, their bark gnarled into screaming faces which followed my progress. No birds sang in branches and no small creatures disturbed the carpet of fallen needles as I walked. The only sound was the incessant whisper of the wind snaking through the trees. As the track delivered me into the village boundary, the sun slid behind the highest peak, plunging the clearing into premature dusk. The trees drew back like spectators gathered around a stage, leaving the derelict buildings exposed. Each house stood silent sentinel, their once vibrant outer walls now faded and peeling, doors and windows swung open to reveal the darkness within like gaping mouths and hollow eye sockets. I glanced over my shoulder with the unnerving sensation that unseen eyes observed my trespass. The shadows seemed to creep closer. Heart racing, I selected the most intact of the buildings and crossed the threshold into the gloom beyond. I swept my flashlight beam around the single-room hovel looking for a relatively clean spot to lay my bedroll. My breath plumed in the air, despite the late summer warmth outside. Inside the dusty chamber the temperature was disturbingly frigid. The cold seemed to seep from the very bones of the mountain itself. I busied myself setting up my equipment, infrared cameras, EMF meters, thermographic scanners. I would use the long hours of darkness to analyze this place while not distracted by its disturbing facade. As I worked, the whispers started. At first I dismissed the muted susurrations as my overwrought imagination coupled with the noise of the wind outside. But steadily the ephemeral mutterings clarified into anguished human cries which suggested the tortured unfurling of the soul. Crouched on the packed earth floor I spun around, heart crashing against my ribs seeking the source of the sounds. But I was alone. No logical explanation presented itself. Fear slithered clammy tendrils down my neck. I stumbled outside gulping lungfuls of the chill air, seeking to calm my nerves. Above the jagged horizon a swollen moon leered between scudding clouds like a malignant eye peering through a tear in flesh. As I watched, the moon seemed to throb and pulse sending ribbons of virulent light writhing over the landscape. Fantastic shadows squirmed and flowed over the ruins, twisting into crouching inhuman shapes which scuttled amongst the buildings, merging and splitting in chaotic frenzy. From all around came unnatural grunts and mewls of wicked mirth at my bewildered state. A scream shattered the night. A single drawn-out note of utter despair which seemed to echo endlessly between the mountain peaks. Every fiber of my being yelled at me to flee this cursed village, return to the sanctuary of the valley below. But I had to know. Half stumbling in my haste, I lurched towards the sound. It originated in the largest building which dominated the far side of the clearing, once perhaps the village meeting hall. Inside I found a scene of darkness and horror. All four walls were adorned with ancient bone-yellowed scroll paintings depicting twisted figures with contorted faces, captured in the act of unspeakable rituals and ceremonies of hellish appeal. The sweet corrupt reek of long congealed blood clung to the air. In the center of the room a single emaciated figure knelt, face raised to the hole in the ceiling open to the night. Filthy black hair hung in knotted curtains obscuring its features. It wore the remains of ancient ceremonial robes, now faded to gray by unknown years exposed to the elements. As I watched it swayed gently in time to the endless screams echoing outside. I licked my dry lips, willing my voice to be steady. What happened here? The creature turned towards me. As it shifted, the foul grave shroud parted to reveal a gnarled hand, all skin and sinew clinging to bone. With a shock I realized it was a woman, though little of her original semblance survived. The face regarding me with patient malevolence might once have been beautiful but was now sunken and skull-like, desiccated lips drawn back over broken teeth. Her gaze rooted me to the spot, bright with feverish intensity. When it spoke, her voice was the dry rustle of insect wings. My people grew proud. They thought themselves beyond the natural order of things. When the crops failed they begged me intervene on their behalf. One claw-like hand extended towards the vile paintings. I went deep into the old places, made contact with forces which moved to my command. I struck a new covenant which guaranteed prosperity. Her face spasmed with ancient grief. But the price was not made clear to me. She turned towards the hole in the roof, contempt and self-loathing etched on her face. For a while the village thrived beyond all others in the valley. But the evil seeped into every soul, turned brother against brother, parent against child. Then the disappearances began. First the very old, then the very young. Her shoulders spasmed in a gruesome travesty of a shrug. What was required became clear. The desperate bargain could only be sustained by regular blood sacrifice. She fixes me again with those fathomless eyes. When it was my own daughter, my little joy, so trusting and innocent, when finally they came for her. She paused as a fresh wave of soul-deep agony contorted her face. Then at last I understood the measure of my naivety and stupidity. My child butchered by my own hand. I cursed them all. Called on the forces I had foolishly controlled to take righteous vengeance. She climbed unsteadily to her feet, rage twisting her features into something no longer human. Around us the air crackled with gathering power fueling the creature's bitterness. But my people turned on me. I was beaten, broken. While I lay shattered in body and spirit they bound me here with rituals and incantations taught by my own hand. They thought it would be enough to spare themselves, leave me alone to pay the eternal price. She stretches her left arm towards me, revealing the inner flesh scarred with arcane symbols which seem to writhe and dance in the gloom. But it was not enough. Now we are all bound here in this endless nightmare I created. Their souls cry out for release but I deny them. I alone decide their torment. With impossible speed her fingers lock vice-like around my arm. Intense cold sears my skin. Outside the frenzied scream have risen to a fevered crescendo. Rage and bitterness etched on her twisted features she pulls me towards her. Now you will join us. Here you will remain. Despair floods my mind at her words. I know with sick certainty her curse is enough to bind me to this torment. As her free hand reaches for my face ready to mark my soul as her plaything for all eternity inspiration strikes. Focusing my thoughts with laser intensity I grab for the iron cross on a chain around my neck, pull it forth and thrust it between our faces. You hold no power over me, foul one. The heavy symbol of faith glows white hot. She releases me with a soul-tearing shriek which echoes from the mountains. Stumbling backward she tries to shield herself from the purifying aura. Seizing my chance I bolt blindly, crashing through decaying walls in my desperation to escape the suffocating malice. Behind me unholy screams rise to a crescendo as her full wrath and bitterness seeks release. I run until I fall, scraping hands raw on stone and wood, crossing the boundary from cursed to natural world in scrabbling agonized heartbeats. Only when tangled tree roots threaten to trip and bind me do I finally halt, lungs burning. As I kneel panting clouds finally smother the contagious moon leaving the forest brooding and lightless. In the valley I speak nothing of what I witnessed in the haunted ruins. But sometimes on still and starless nights when the sighing of the wind carries just the right cadence, I fancy I hear the anguished cries of the trapped souls. I know if I concentrate I will hear her voice, calling for me to return. And now I understand the fate of those drawn back to that place will be more awful than any human mind can comprehend. The evil has marked me, yet for now I am free. But it lurks patiently, waiting, knowing that one night I will hear its call and be unable resist, will take the winding track back into the cursed village to claim me as its own.